Sometimes we forget why we're here. It's easy to fall off track. These help us remember.
These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Growing up I had a dream, something no one else could see. Tell me what it means when your faith is falling beneath your knees and you can't breathe. Everything you see reminds you of what you're not or something you won't be. You gotta take what you're given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be an accountant because it's safe in the business. Not because they wanna do it, just because they heard it pays. And who the fuck wants to be poor knowing that's how we've been raised? Society is getting heavy, I can feel the weight. The pressure of success is like 100 million pounds of shame. And that's the reason I'm staying up late, trying to find a way to escape the stereotypes. This day and age is making me feel like the only way I'll be happy is getting signed to a label and making money through rapping. I wanna share my emotion because this world is attacking the very principle of life that lets the people be happy. If you don't have a reason to breathe, why even live? These battle scars are impressions of everything that it is.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battles.
Now if I had a voice that reached 100 million people, I'd tell them there's a reason that we're all created equal. Cause some decide to be great and some decide a sequel to an average person's life is simply what they want to be. So you make your decision, all I know is what I'm given. Won't define the life I lead or the way I dwell in existence. I've seen a greater image on the walls of where I'm living, and the words twisted and scripted remind me of something written. Faith is a gift that is given down to the people. If one believes it, one receives it. It's given if it is needed. Don't ever think you're trapped in a life that you never wanted. Your options are infinite, that's some mathematical logic. I'm not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers and these battle scars on my church. Not saying I'm a prophet, I'm speaking for what it's worth. These lyrics define my prayers, these battle scars on my church.
Don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change. These battle scars don't look like they're faded, don't look like they're ever gone away. They ain't never gonna change.
Well, hello everyone. How are you doing? This is probably, well, it is, if my plans go as planned, going to be a short show. I'm on my Christmas break, but I also have been extremely busy. Before we get into what I've been busy with, let's do the YouTube stuff. And of course, I don't have this set up, but first of all, please subscribe if you're not subscribed to this channel. I would truly, truly appreciate it. It helps boost the algorithm, the all-important algorithm, and lets me know you like me. You really, really like me. And like and share if you feel so inclined. Yes, Bunchy has sped up again. Bunchy is upset that I wasn't streaming for a couple days. If y'all saw my Facebook picture, Wayne and I went out hiking. Was it yesterday? Yes, yesterday, up in Boulder. Next here, you can follow me on all my social media. It usually can be entertaining. I'm Karen Ann Harlos everywhere. And last but certainly not least, I really, really could use your support coming into the new year. And remember, which we're going to get to in a minute, that the top patrons do get an advertising spot on the show. And from what I understand, the advertising has been successful for my past sponsors. So go check it out on Patreon. Top sponsors or patrons do get an ad spot, but there's also other benefits, which most people don't claim, but you can claim if you are one of my top patrons. Remember, once a year you can get a t-shirt. I know I need to upload some new designs. That is on the docket. You can request show topics, and of course all of my patrons get access to the videos, which are the book discussions, and we are getting towards the end of The Problem of Political Authority and access to my private Discord server. It's not particularly active, but I do plan on using that more in 2022. So let's, and I'm, well, never, I've got some other ideas. And as always, all super chats matter. That really does help me out if you appreciate content, if you throw me a super chat. Now, speaking of sponsors, one of my sponsors from this year was Astros, which is a cybersecurity service firm that is ran by a libertarian. And Astros will check out your online organization or business and give it a clean bill of cybersecurity health. You can get a free surface penetration audit at asteros.com/free. That's ASTEROS.com/free. And I really do appreciate his sponsorship for the past year. Now, what I've been super busy on, it's going to be the show for tomorrow, which is all about the current happenings with the Libertarian Party of Michigan. Now, that story is not over, but a big chapter of it is over. And thank you so much, DJL, for your super chat. I do truly appreciate it. You should stick in the chat your channel. People who are interested in third-party activism will really appreciate his channel. He deals with a lot of third-party stuff. He deals with the controversies that had gone on in the People's Party, which is something that I need to get back to. And there's also some shows I want to do on the Prohibition Party. Believe it or not, they're still around. But about the Libertarian Party of Michigan. So one big chapter has ended. And I find there's a lot of confusion. Some of the confusion is just from party members that, listen, God bless you. You don't pay attention because you have a life of some of the parliamentary, details and the internal just stuff that goes on. And I would like to explain that in easily understandable format for those party members. Then there are some party members who just disagree. And it is possible to disagree in good faith and move on. I disagreed with a judicial committee from the National Party, two of them actually, the one in Massachusetts and the one in my case. And I didn't try to burn the party down. I disagreed and I moved on. And then there are, unfortunately, as there always is in any group, though thankfully these are in the minority, some truly bad faith actors that are misrepresenting what is going on and behaving, in my opinion, in very destructive ways. Your opinion may vary, but that's what we're going to talk about tomorrow. And actually, JJ, I tiny bit disagree with you on your opinion, but I think some disagreement is good. Though, as far as the Judicial Committee decision goes, it's a distinction without a difference. It could become a difference with a different fact pattern, but for cases of the JC decision, it is to me, a distinction without a difference. I do think those other two conventions are, in fact, special conventions. I don't think they are some third species of thing. Though I do think that's the next reasonable interpretation, is the one that you had, or basically the one I had, which Andrew originally argued. And I think the JC decided that they were special conventions. But they are either special convention or a variety of special convention. I like your terminology of specified convention if that's the route. But one thing they are not is regular conventions. To me, that is without a doubt, it renders other interpretations of the bylaws absurd. But again, we'll get into this in great detail tomorrow. People who disagree in good faith are certainly welcome to be in chat. The major lesson to take away from what happened in Michigan, though, is a party-wide problem of bad bylaws. Now, their bylaws as a whole, there's some parts of them that are quite good. But the parts that are bad and cause this. Simply being, and it's great to be a willing volunteer. But just like if I needed surgery, I'm not going to go to a room of people that I agree with on some things and say, who wants to volunteer to be on my surgical team? I would want those people to have some skill in medicine. We need to learn as a party that just because someone raises their hand that they want to be on a bylaws committee does not make them qualified. For the love of God, when are we going to learn this? And if you do have people who perhaps aren't particularly trained, but they're intelligent, they have the best interests of the party at heart, then for the love of God, again, hire a parliamentarian or find one in the party that's willing to volunteer to take a look at these things before they're presented to convention. Because these changes that were made to the convention language, they're bad. Bad bylaws. Very, very bad. And that's ultimately what this problem comes down to. Yeah, there are other issues, the human factor, that's always going to happen. There's going to be personality conflicts. There's going to be differences. But all of that would have been mitigated with a well-written set of bylaws. Not perfect, because I think the bylaws in Colorado are damn good, but they have some flaws too. But my God, you'll see when we go through this tomorrow, and anyone who thinks these bylaws are clear and wonderful, please keep away from any bylaws committee if you think that. Because they're not. Because they're not. So, let's move on to the LP news for tonight. My monologue, if that's what we want to call it, was 14 minutes long. So we've got this show and probably one other to finish out the November-December LP news. Haven't decided how I'm going to break it up yet, but we've got 3 columns to cover. So we'll either do 2 and 1 or 1 and 2. Okay. F.A. Hayek explores conditions for a free society. So, Hayek is an OG, a very well-known name. So there was a column here by Joe Cobb. Now, I know Joe. Joe is still around in the party. Speaking of OGs, Joe Cobb is an OG. If I remember correctly, he's from California. So the subtitle is Law, Legislation, and Liberty. This is a book. I might need to get that. In this first volume of a projected 3-volume work, F.A. Hayek addresses himself to the task which he first comprehensively undertook in his Constitution of Liberty. Now, I'm going to confess right out, I've read The Road to Serfdom, and that's it. I haven't read anything else by Hayek. To explore the necessary and sufficient conditions for a libertarian society under a limited government. Hayek has recently been awarded the Nobel Prize in Economics for his work in the field involving the relationship between social and economic institutions. This volume is principally concerned with the distinction between the 2 types of law, the rules of just conduct and the rules of social organization. The former we recognize as the common law and the second as the traffic laws, for instance. Boo, Hess on traffic laws. He organizes the book with first a discussion of two opposing philosophical approaches to social theory, the constructivist rationalist mistake, which underlies all socialist and behaviorist theories, and then traces the intellectual theory of the opposite, organic theories of law and society from ancient Greece to modern social science. His task is to examine exactly what is meant by the concept of a government of laws, not of men, from the writings of the earliest political philosophers through the theoreticians who inspired the American Constitution and the best writers in the classical, liberal tradition of the 19th and 20th centuries. The central discussion of the work revolves around the difference between two types of order. And I think you're getting the point here. I don't really think I need to go through all this, but if that sort of thing scratches you where you itch, I'm sure this book is still available for purchase. So again, it's called Law, Legislation, and Liberty from F.A. Hayek. So now here's something that's much more LP specific is the next column, XCOM Plans 1975 Convention. Remember, we used to have conventions every year back then. And that's what we're going to end on today is talking about this. So the LNC back then, which they called themselves the Executive Committee, they weren't called the LNC yet. I don't know when that changed. I'm sure we will find that out. There were 25 members at that time. Not conditional members, because there's 25 members now, but they're not full members. We have 17 full members and 8 alternates. This was 25 actual members, if I remember correctly, plus alternates. There's alternates still. Of the National Executive Committee of the LP assembled in Washington, D.C. over the Thanksgiving weekend. Wow, they met over Thanksgiving. We'd never do that now. Though we have met over Easter before. To discuss recent developments and make plans for the coming year. An additional 30 onlookers, that is a good gallery, were present at the meeting, which lasted from early Saturday morning through late afternoon Sunday. So the in-person meetings seem like has followed the same pattern even back then. The highlight of the meeting was a spirited discussion on where to hold the 1975 National Convention. That reminds me of the most spirited debate we've had yet on this LNC was about our March meeting. 4 cities, New York, Los Angeles, Chicago, and San Mateo, submitted bids to host the convention, which will feature nomination of the LP candidates for president and vice president, as well as election of new party officers and drafting of a new platform. Did they draft an entirely new platform in 75? I don't know if they used to do that every year. Right now, the current platform is the foundation for all future platforms. But notice we did at that time, and it changed, I think, in the 90s. We did elect our president and vice presidential candidates the year before, and that changed because of ballot access laws and the way certain states have to have their conventions. San Mateo was eliminated first, then Chicago, and on a vote of 12 to 10, New York was selected over Los Angeles. Ed Clark, chairman of the LP of California, presented the Los Angeles proposal, and FLP chairperson Ray Strong spoke on behalf of the New York party. The convention will be held August 28th through September 1st at the Statler Hilton. State delegate representation at the convention will be based on state membership as of December 31st, 1974. A major portion of the meeting was devoted to the 1976 presidential campaign and what the LP can do now to improve our impact in 76. A presidential committee was approved, and Gary Greenberg of New York was appointed chairman. I remember, I think, from the LP News from a few issues ago, David Nolan was the temporary chairman of that committee. So Gary must be the permanent one. I'm not sure what happened here. Maybe I'm misremembering. Greenberg, former campaign manager for Fran Youngstein's 1973 mayoral race, will work with Carl Bray of Utah and Eric Garris of California in developing a national campaign organization that will be able to go to work immediately upon the selection of the LP candidate at the convention in 75. Now, what's different, and I don't know whether this was just a cultural change in the party, whether there was an actual bylaws change, but the LNC used to be much more hands-on with both the selection of and support of the presidential ticket, where now it's very much hands off. We will support the presidential ticket in ways that they want, but they form their own committees and campaign support structure. The one exception, though this wasn't a campaign support structure, is there was a lot of unrest, there's ever unrest in the LP, over the Gary Johnson Bill Weld ticket with the whole bake the cake crap and a lot of other stuff they were saying. So in order, and I realize now it was just an appeasement move. They had no intention of ever listening to it. They allowed the LNC to form a campaign advisory committee to make requests of them on how they presented certain messaging that was off platform, but they basically were like, yeah, that's nice, we're not going to do that. I mean, they let the committee be formed and then promptly ignored us. I was on that committee. I remember that. It was basically like, LOL, okay. And to be honest with you, there is a bylaw, and I don't know if that bylaw was in place now. It'd be interesting to go look at that. But there's a current bylaw that says that the LNC, the National Party, will provide full support to the nominees selected at convention as long as their campaigns are conducted in conformity with our bylaws and platform. And that was to prevent us supporting off-platform candidates. But what are we going to do? Revoke their nominations? The LNC does have the power to do that. And a lot of people think that's what we should have done to Bill Weld and Gary Johnson, at least Bill Weld. Revoked, well, both of them, but more so Bill Weld. But some of our state parties depend upon the presidential and vice presidential numbers for ballot access. So they know they have us over a barrel, that we're not going to revoke their nomination. But I have to tell you, I have looked back, second guessing whether I should have made that motion. But, you know, my desire to protect state parties overrode that. But we had every right to revoke their nomination because of those completely off-platform comments and their complete unwillingness to address it. Because here was the request that was made of them, and I think this is a perfectly reasonable request. It's the same request I make personally to candidates I support today and candidates in the LPCO. You don't have to agree with everything the platform says. You're not a walking, talking libertarian bot. I don't always agree with everything the platform says. Now I agree with it more than I used to. But you're a human being. You're allowed to disagree. Just if you're going to say something that's your personal position and not the position of the party, just make that clear. Like back when we had a statement, which I wish we didn't delete, but it is deleted, that says that, you know, while people can have good faith opinions on all sides of the abortion debate, we believe that government should be kept out of the matter. So our platform explicitly said that we don't support laws restricting abortion. Well, we had plenty of candidates who did. And I'm like, fine. You can have that position. Our platform even says you're coming at it in good faith. But when you start saying, yeah, there needs to be a law, just say, this is my personal position and not the position of the Libertarian Party. I don't think that's an unreasonable ask. But they refused. And unfortunately in this party, and I think it's probably in all parties, but I don't really care about other parties. I care about this one. Is we treat our candidates like they're demigods. They're just candidates. And it's great that they ran, but they're not better or more valuable than your activists who put in 40 hours a week. The activist isn't better either. I mean, everybody has a different place. Nobody is a demigod, is what I'm trying to say. Now to Dave Davis's comment, our bylaws give us that power, which means the delegates wanted the LNC to have that power. I don't really care what the outside world thinks that we look like. I think we look ridiculous when we have Gary and Bill. Gary saying, yes, we should eliminate the income tax, and Bill Weld on that town hall going, whoa, maybe we shouldn't go that far. Are you fucking kidding me? And yeah, maybe heroin shouldn't be legalized. Are you kidding me? And bake the cake? Like, I could sit and talk myself into right now that I should have made that motion. It wouldn't have passed. But I think I would have felt better about myself if I actually made it. Anyway, that was a bit of a rabbit trail, but hopefully you enjoyed it. Should I say how I really feel? But Spitfire Arvin Vohra didn't make that motion either, by the way, so I can't feel too bad. The presidential committee plan was the work of LP co-founder Dave Nolan. I thought he was involved in this in the beginning, and includes the establishment of a Liberty 76 fund to which contributions will immediately be accepted. That has to be, the campaign finance laws had to change since then, because we can't do things like this now. There can be a separate PAC formed, but the LNC can't direct it at all. The goal of the fund is to collect $25,000 prior to the convention. Garris, who has a thorough knowledge of state election laws, was named to coordinate state LP attempts to gain ballot access. Any state LP that would like to work with Garris should write him in care of the national headquarters. According to Garris, the LP stands quite a good chance to be on the ballot in 21 states, with about a dozen others representing possibilities. Andrea Millen, vice chair of the LP and chairwoman of the Publications Committee, reported that a new introductory brochure will be available by the first of the year. Approval was given for the committee to create a series of position papers and to have a booklet on libertarianism written. Not sure what the booklet was, but those position papers are available, and they're very good. Economic advisors and other action, the ExCom approved a proposal to establish a board of economic advisors and to present in January a 5-point Libertarian Party economic program. Bob Meyer reported on the upcoming 1975 Conference on International Liquidity and Monetary. They spelled that wrong. It says Monterey Reform. Let's go reform Monterey. To be co-sponsored by the LP and the National Committee to Legalize Gold. 10 outstanding speakers have been lined up for the conference, which will be held next March in New Orleans, contingent on the satisfactory resolution of some legal questions which are now being worked on. The state LPs will be sent detailed information on the conference in January, and it is hoped that they will represent the National Party as sales agents. 5 more states have had affiliation petitions accepted by the National LP. The ExCom voted to affiliate parties in Arkansas, Connecticut, Indiana, Oregon, and Kansas. Organizing is presently going on in Missouri, Iowa, Idaho, and Alabama. A considerable amount of time was spent discussing the successes and disappointments of the past campaign. Carl Bray and Paul Baird were at the meeting, and they commented on their races for Congress in Utah and Alaska. A Washington, D.C. LP liaison office was established at the meeting. Dick Gentry, who is organizing the Virginia LP, will be in charge of the operation, which will keep libertarians up to date on pending legislation. The next executive committee will be held in Chicago next May. So that is all we are going to cover today. And I do agree with you, Dave, that we do need to do a better job of vetting before the nomination. That is the job of the delegates. Sometimes they don't do such a great job of that, and other times they do a great job of it. I've seen multiple instances. The problem that I see it is when someone was previously elected, we just drop our drawers. We got all moist over the idea of 2 former governors, and that meant crap. It really did. And Gary Johnson was a superstar, and Gary basically nearly broke out in tears asking us for Weld. And kind of low-key said, not said, that if we didn't give him Weld, he wouldn't accept the nomination. Hope we're not strong-armed like that again. All right, everyone, I hope you have an awesome night. I'm going to get back to working on the Michigan material. I'm really going through everything in order to give as complete and detailed and accurate, though I'm sure I'll get some facts wrong. And hopefully people in chat will correct me if there were some objective facts that I get wrong on the situation. So I do hope you'll turn in tomorrow. I think it's a particularly important show. Okay, have a good night, everyone. Bye-bye.
Given, that's how we live it. Don't be mad at the system, it's simply how we've existed. I hear a lot of people talking like they politicians and choose to be in a